Good morning, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News. Today is Wednesday, the 15th day of January, 2025. And we're in a very confusing time right now. At the end of the Biden administration, the Trump administration taking over in less than a week, a lot of things are happening. We're going to explain what is taking place right now at the moment and the potential outcomes. They are huge with respect to last day's Bible prophecy and what may occur in the near future. And so we'll get to those stories in a minute. First of all, I want to thank you for your prayers yesterday about the wind situation here in Southern Cal. The wind was negligible yesterday. The big winds that are supposed to come did not. Today, we are told it's still a possibility till about noon. And there's something like 15,000 firefighters surrounding the two major fires there, the Eaton fire and the Palisades fire, uh, in case it breaks out and trying to contain it. The worry, of course, is with the winds and the dry ground, the lack of rain we've had. In fact, we haven't had a good rainstorm since May of last year, believe it or not, here in Southern Cal. And so we thank you again for your prayers, but keep praying. About noon today, the red alert will end here in Southern Cal. And if we don't have fires that have started or that are going on, we should be at least out of the woods for a particular period of time. So thank you again for your prayers. Much appreciated. All right. Our top story, Israel's potential hostage deal with Hamas. Hamas continues to move the goalposts. We're going to see that from the Jerusalem Post and YNET. Yesterday, Defense Secretary Nominee Hegseth said, I support Israel destroying and killing every last member of Hamas. This is from the Jewish News Service. He did an excellent job, by the way, and he'll be a great defense secretary. And then another envoy of Trump, the Saudi-Israeli normalization is a huge priority. It's another from YNET News. And these have major implications with what's going to happen in the future, with where our world will be. So let's dive right into them. Okay, first headline. Israel's potential hostage deal with Hamas. Hamas continues to move the goalpost. The top story in Israel the last couple of days has been this: a hostage deal between Israel and Hamas is imminent, likely to be signed in any moment now. For example, we read hostage deal right on the brink, awaiting final words from Hamas. Hostage deal likely to be announced within hours. Jerusalem Post. That was from yesterday. Well, of course, we've heard this before and nothing has come of it. In fact, in all the euphoria, we now have these headlines this morning. Hamas claims Israel is adding new conditions. Negotiations persist from the Jerusalem Post. Hamas is making a false claim that Israel has added new conditions to the negotiations to avoid implementing the deal, a diplomatic source later noted. And then YNET News has this headline: Hamas accused of stalling hostage deal. Palestinians shift the blame to Israel. All right, Hamas's leader Mohammed Sinwar approves the proposed hostage deal in principle. The Wall Street Journal reports, though, that the Palestinian sources accuse Israel of withholding key details, including withdrawal maps. So here we are. We continue to be in this ongoing, confusing situation where Hamas keeps moving the goalposts. What we don't understand is why anyone is surprised at this. Does anyone really truly think this terrorist group will make a deal with Israel? Then we have this troubling headline from Israel Hayom. Why is Trump pushing Israel toward a bad deal? Now it's a long headline, a long story, and we're not going to get into it, but I'll give you the gist of it. Here's what the author says. This scenario is comparable to the U.S. allowing Guantanamo detainees to disperse among its borders with Canada and Mexico a year after 9/11, or permitting them to join Taliban forces against U.S. troops in Afghanistan, a notion that defies strategic logic. Paradoxically, it is now Trump who is pressuring Netanyahu to accept a framework designed in May 2024 under the Biden administration. The absence of strategic acumen in this deal is glaring, making it perplexing why the author of The Art of the Deal is pushing Israel towards what essentially amounts as a pact with the enemy. In other words, there's been a lot of worrisome stories coming out of Israel that Netanyahu has had to knuckle under. Trump has made certain demands that by the time he takes office, there has to be a deal because he wants to move on from the Middle East and that. So there's a lot of, obviously worry and consternation there in Israel. So what's going to happen? And the answer is we're going to have to wait and see. And so this is problematic. And again, we'll know in a few days where this is all going. Now, on the other hand, yesterday, Trump's nominee for defense secretary had this to say at his confirmation hearing, which is headline number two. Defense Secretary Nominee Hegseth said, I support Israel destroying, killing every last member of Hamas. So far, so good. Then he was asked by Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, do you consider yourself a Christian Zionist? Now, we've talked about this before. This is basically what we are here. This is our perspective. We are Christians, but believe that God has a plan for Israel, even though there's still an unbelief in the future. They will be converted, but first go through a period of great tribulation, as Jesus warned in Matthew 24:21. They're supernaturally brought back to the land in phase one in unbelief. They're there against all odds of history, twice removed from the homeland, twice brought back, fighting enemies all around them. And every time a war breaks out, they seem to gain more territory. It's just amazing. 76 years it's been with the modern state of Israel as a fulfillment of Bible prophecy, because as we've said in the last days, it was promised they would return to their ancient homeland. Jesus promised this, and we've got that in Ezekiel and other places, and here we are. And so Tom Cotton, who is a Christian, asked Hegseth, he's a Christian Zionist. Now listen to the answer. I am a Christian, and I robustly support the state of Israel and its existential defense and the way America comes alongside as their great ally. Hegseth said, I support Israel destroying and killing every last member of Hamas. Now, this is a great answer, and hopefully these stories about Trump pressuring Israel for a bad deal will turn out to be false. However, Hegseth also said this, and it's going to sound like something you've heard us repeat over and over again here the last several months, particularly since Trump won the election. If confirmed, okay, Hegseth said he intends to redirect Pentagon's behemoth away from the protracted conflicts in the Middle East to focus on the U.S. confrontation with China. Now, let's get that again. Pentagon's behemoth, in other words, the assets that we have in the Middle East, the protracted conflicts, are going to be moved out of the Middle East and into the Far East with the U.S. confrontation in China. We're going to start by ensuring the institution understands, as far as threats abroad, the Chinese Communist Party is front and center, also obviously defending our homeland as well. So again, Trump's goal is, like we've said, the art of the deal, get a deal done and move on. And trying to do this, as we're going to talk about with respect to Hamas, Hezbollah, deal with Iran, but then move basically to the from the Middle East to the Far East, which fits perfectly the last days biblical scenarios we've talked about. That is, United States is nowhere to be seen in the last days for whatever reason, and possibly because of its assets will be all consumed there in the Far East with China, because that is not a small problem for the U.S. right now. So we'll see now. So again, this is consistent with what we've been reporting about Trump's foreign policy goals: get a deal done with Israel and those who are threatening them, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran. With Iran, it may take military intervention. Hegseth said this is also next person we're talking about, Mike Waltz, his incoming national security advisor, said the same thing. Basically, Iran may have to be taken out with some type of strike. So they're all on the same page with that. So this brings us to headline number 3. Saudi-Israeli normalization is a huge priority, says the Trump envoy. Incoming National Security Advisor Mike Waltz identifies normalization between Jerusalem and Riyadh as a key objective that will change the region. He outlines a vision for a demilitarized Gaza and clarifies that initial hostage deal does not mark the end of the war. He is the incoming National Security Advisor for the Trump administration, and he's declared that achieving a peace agreement between Israel and Saudi Arabia is a huge priority for the incoming administration. Waltz also emphasized the need to eliminate these terrorist organizations, secure the release of hostages, and make progress towards Riyadh. He says, so let's call it what it is, the next phase of the Abraham Accords, he said in an interview on the popular American podcast Call Me Back. He described the potential Israel-Saudi Arabia normalization as a tremendous historic region-changing agreement. Finally, Waltz underscored the Trump administration's commitment to ensuring Hamas and similar groups have no future in Gaza. Hamas, ISIS, and al-Qaeda have no place in governance. We must eradicate this cancer, not just for Israel's sake, but for the sake of the Palestinian people too. We will never achieve a stable future or a truly peaceful region until this threat is removed. So again, like Hegseth, he has said all the right things. Yet Israel is frightened that Trump will force them into a deal with Hamas that will not meet these objectives. Now, again, what's going to happen? Well, we're going to have to wait and see because we're in this lull now between the two administrations, and we don't know. Trump won't take over till Monday, and we'll find out. Now, as to what will eventually occur in the Middle East at the time of the end. We have a lot of new people joining us every day. Please see our books. 25 Signs We're Near the End. Look up a timeline of 50 last days events and the Ezekiel 38-39 invasion. That's three of the important books on the subject of last days Bible prophecy. They're all available on our website, Educating Our World, and they are all of them are free downloads. They're free. There's no obligation. We don't take your name, address, phone number, anything like that. We don't charge for anything. It's our ministry. We give away this because we want you to have the information. We want you to know what's going on. We want you to share it with as many people as possible and shamelessly promote it. And we thank you for doing that. We've done, the Lord's blessed extremely well with the sense of the word getting out. We're going to continue to do it. Now, we also know that Israel is going to experience a time of unprecedented suffering in the future before the return of the Lord, with what the scripture tells us. So that's coming in the future. We know that. And then there's going to be this wonderful conversion. But how we get there, and this is what we keep emphasizing here on breaking news in this ministry, how we get there is unknown. We know where we're going to end up. In other words, we know we've seen as we give the same illustration, the last scene of the play, the last act of the play, last scene of the movie. We've read the last chapter of the book, and we know the Lord Jesus returns. We know certain events are going to take place before that, and we as Christians are going to be with him forever and ever. And we're seeing all these events literally, as we've talked about every day, miraculously come together. And by the way, if you're new to us, you may want to start checking out the last two Saturdays. We've done the week in review where we explain the main stories of the week. You need to watch that because it'll summarize what's been going on. It'll be cumulative as to understand what all is going on and how it fits last day's Bible prophecy. It's really an exciting time to be alive. So again, we appreciate your prayers and your support. It's very exciting what we're seeing right now. Never a dull moment, and we'll just kind of have to wait to find out what goes on with this hostage situation, with respect to Iran, with respect to Russia, China, and so much other going on, the southern border of the United States, and the such like. Okay, until next time, I'm Don Stewart. As always, thank you so much for watching, and again, may the Lord richly, richly bless.